We're talking at a very crucial juncture when the first report, the preliminary report, is out in the Air India crash, which led to loss of 260 lives. And in fact, after this report has been published, there are a lot of questions in people's mind, and they want to hear it from experts like you exactly how this report is going to help in this entire investigation to reach the bottom of the cause of this very tragic crash. Once again, much appreciate you joining us here at Times Now. Sir, my first question would be, what is your assessment and what is your take of this initial report by the AAIB?
You see, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau of Government of India has been entrusted with the task of finding out the causes and the reason of this particular crash, which is a very unfortunate happening. It happened on 12th of June, AI-171, which was flying from Ahmedabad to Gatwick. Immediately after takeoff, met with a fatal accident, which is a very unfortunate situation. So basically, the within 30 days, it is mandated that they have to submit some fact-finding report. So as far as I'm concerned, this is basically a statement of facts of what data they have recovered so far. Because if you honestly ask me, it is a very short time for any investigative agency to cull the data, to collect the information, and also come for any meaningful dialogue. So it is basically a kind of a status report where they have observed what they have noted so far, which is neither conclusive nor exhaustive. So the point is that it is a fact that the aircraft took off, and immediately after takeoff, the aircraft felt problems in operating further, and it almost had a kind of a loop effect. It went and crashed the medical college hostel's roof. So basic point is that one of the first thing that I have observed, or what anybody can observe, is that when you deal with any accident, there are thousands of reasons which are talked about, and the most common among them is the weather. There could be causes of sabotage, so many explosions and all that. So far, this report has clarified that there was neither a weather issue, which is never a case of primary accident. It is a contributory. It can be a contributory factor. There's also no sabotage here. The other factor which is important is that the aircraft took off with the proper thrust and speed. So there was no problem in terms of the engine performance when it took off. They were generating proper power. They attained proper speed. And immediately after that, in few seconds, whatever has happened, basically, all the crisis which emerged has been within the 10 seconds. Now, coming to the fact that so far the report indicates is essentially that there has been a few conversation of pilots, which I don't think they've disclosed the complete conversation. They've only talked about few one or two salient factors, which are important. They are very important observation. There's also an important observation about automatic opening of this deployment of RAM air turbine, which is a very significant pointer here. So basically, the total focus now is restricted to human behavior and also the behavior of engines. Normally, it is again established that there has been a loss of power, which has been the cause of the accident. And loss of power can happen because of three factors. One factor is hydraulic failure, electrical failure, or dual engine failure, which also is a very, very rare situation because these aircrafts have very fail-safe mechanism. So I think so far we are now delving into those 10 seconds, which has been the crucial factor which caused this. The report has also indicated the experience of pilots, the pilot's background, the aircraft background. Interestingly, there has been no adverse observation about the past behavior of machine because some aircrafts are usually accident prone or incident prone, or they may have had some past history of accidents or some kind of servicing issues which are not there. Nor the pilots had any such issues. They have very unblemished record. So I think so far, uh, I would say that it has done a lot of exclusion. Now, what caused is the question, and in fact, in many ways, as I've said in some of my earlier statement, that this report throws more questions than answers. We will now deal with some of the points that you raised.
Now, if we talk about, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of associations. You mentioned yourself about how there is a question of pilot error. And many are saying that report is steering towards the idea of pilot error. What do you say to all these people who are talking about this entire pilot error angle in this entire report? And in fact, we've seen how there is outrage also from the Pilots Association side in this entire matter.
Look, you see, there is one significant factor which is important here. That this report, A, was released at the midnight hours on Saturday morning, which is very unusual situation because if you know, Government of India works from Monday to Friday and 6 p.m. the office closes. Usually, such reports are released before that, though there is no law which says that it could be there. So basically, I do not know what prompted the government to release the report at early morning hours. The second more important factor is that while this report came out, almost 2 days before that, the Western media, many of the agencies had started commenting on the findings of this report. You are also in media profession, so there are sources, and usually a lot of times there is a attempt to bring out facts before the actual reports come out. But what surprises me is that the findings or the observations made by the Western media exactly tallied with the findings of the report. So somewhere there was a leakage of this report to Western media in advance. And Western media, if you really see, had it is not the report per se, it is more because the Western media has tried to paint a picture that it is the pilot's error or the fuel switch were meddled with by the pilot, which could be the cause of it. It is, as I said, that it is very early because most of the time in our accident investigations, we have found that blaming a single point cause to an accident may not be the right thing. There are compounding factors which can cause. But definitely the Western media tried to portray a picture that there has been some kind of situation where pilots may have been, the human factor may have been responsible for it, which is, I think, very unfortunate and premature. Coming to the report per se does not say anywhere that there has been a human intervention because neither in fact DFDR and findings have yet to be properly disclosed because it's voluminous data and it need not be disclosed at this stage, and it has to be still studied. But when we look at the cockpit voice recorder communication between captain and co-pilot, so captain was caught unaware, and captain asked the co-pilot whether co-pilot has shut down the engine, which he said no. So, in fact, in my opinion, that is a very strong argument in favor of the pilot that they did not interfere with it. And within a matter of few seconds, again the fuel system came to life, which is where the pilots tried to take the corrective action, which was not enough, which did not respond in time. So I think, then you have to also correlate it with the rate, the ram air turbine opening automatically, which is an auxiliary power system, which usually provides power in case of both engine failure. Somewhere the sensors have activated it. So when it is very early to comment on giving the final opinion, but let's see that we need to go into more working. This is definitely somewhere the question is what caused the malfunction. That is what it is. Now coming to the dual switches of the fuel switches. It is not a machine. It is not something which can be done in a fraction of seconds. There is a mechanism by which you pull it out, and it is always done when you are when you're coming to the end of the flight, and in between the flight, it can only be done when there is one or the other engine develops some kind of snag, and which can cause some kind of either imbalance to the gravity of the aircraft, or otherwise fire or some kind of unfortunate incident. So no such thing has been reported, nor even when you see the debris on the ground, you will find the engines are intact, the fuel control switches are intact, they are in open position. So it's a matter of a few seconds. What caused that mechanism to behave? And when it is also a very important factor here that we have just come to this conclusion that this is when you go into more deeper into it, maybe some other cause may emerge for this kind of accident, because as I say, it's very preliminary, and it's a very sketchy report, if I may say so.
You're talking about the contents of the report. You said how there's a lot of chatter about the engine switches which we are talking about here, and the fuel control switches we are talking about here. So, if you can explain to our viewers a little bit in an elaborate sense what these switches actually are and how these switches are different from a Boeing and per se if we compare with any other aircraft like an Airbus or any other companies.
No, you see, look, these switches are basically on the panel which is operated by the copilot, and you have to pull them and put them into the closer position. So it's like a lever, you have to pull it out and then close it. So it is not a kind of like your electric switch when you just put the finger on and it closes on and off. So there is a time lag, and because there is a time lag, in if you see the closing time, the shutdown time between first switch and second time switch is 1 second. Once you cannot even lift the lever in 1 second, so I don't think that is the correct situation. And then all the Boeing aircrafts have it. Invariably. And there has been no report of any adversity so far. Of course, there has been some recommendatory service bulletin in 2018, which was never followed neither by the manufacturer nor the rating agencies nor the operator. So I don't think that there is any fault with the switch system, and it has been further clarified that both Boeing and the Air India and FAA has clarified that there is nothing wrong with the system anywhere. And this is a very common thing with all the aircrafts. It is not something which is new. And usually it requires human intervention. And nowhere in the cockpit communication or anywhere it shows that there was a human intervention there.
Absolutely, sir. Now let's come back to the cockpit voice recorder chats, which have been put out in this very report. A lot of people who are actually talking about this very issue, and they're saying that this report is steering towards pilot error. Like you said, it's very early to comment on all these things because it's just a preliminary report. What do you think, sir? In further reports or in any future investigative reports, it is important to look at the entirety of the chat, what transpired there in the cockpit. Yes, the time frame is very very less, but still, the two lines have been put out in this very report. Do you think context would be very important if you want to understand the situation in entirety?
In fact, if you ask me honestly, the communication of captain and co-pilot, which has been given here, in fact, there is also a question mark whether co-pilot asks the captain or captain asks the
Absolutely.
co-pilot. But given any one of them asks, that itself is a kind of a, it gives them a clearance that none of them were aware of what happened. So, as I said, that if you have to tinker with this switch, it is a human intervention. It is not an auto mechanism. So, somewhere an auto mechanism has been responsible. You have to also now report doesn't blame or the report doesn't cast aspersion on the pilot or co-pilot. It is the interpretation by the media. Some of the most of the early media the interpretation which came from the Western media. It is that which has tried to put the onus on the pilot. And for reasons best known to them, and I don't want to deliberate on them, but principally, report is, I mean, when my advice to all the pilots, friends, and the fraternity is that please read the report. Report doesn't cast any aspersion on the pilot or nor gives any opinion as yet. It is just it's just a statement of matter of fact what they have noted. What I object to is the last line where they have said that no instructions have been given to Boeing or engine operator to bring about any changes, etc., which was I think which was superfluous because AAIB is neither competent to issue any instructions to any operator because if at all, it has to be either the manufacturer or the agencies like FAA or EASA which will issue such instructions. So that statement is definitely superfluous here in this report.
So my last question to you, you said that this report cast more questions than giving out answers. So what do you think, what more is needed in this investigation right now? And how do you see this investigation going forward? Because you said like it was a compulsion for the investigative agency to put out a report on 30 days. It is nor conclusive nor exhaustive right now. So what is the way forward for the investigative agencies, and how do you think this investigation going forward in the future?
I think, man, as I said, that the report, as one of the first thing I may all mention here is that this is one of the most freak accident. This is a very freakish incident. Normally, in most other accidents, you can see a very straight pattern of why a particular accident happened. This particular accident is unique in itself, so we classify it as a freak in nature. Now we need to, there are three factors which are significant. The sudden, what this report has indicated so far, I do believe that in future there may be more findings which may lead the investigation to different directions. It is very early. So the first thing is why there was an automatic switch off of the fuel control switches. Secondly, the automatic opening of red. And thirdly, why the second engine didn't respond to the power generation as was needed, whereas the first engine did come. So, man, you have to look at the software glitches here, you have to look at the fuel supply lines here. So, it's a very major issue. And many times in our investigations, we find that cause is somewhere else than what is being looked at, what comes out on the surface. So I think it is a bit complicated thing. Let's not rush to any conclusion as yet, because it is a complicated. This particular accident is complicated in terms of investigation, and I think we should wait for the expert opinions. Luckily, the Boeing representatives are here and all the others. But here, I definitely want to comment on the competence of AAIB because we have invested crores of rupees in getting the equipment to do the debugging of, the downloading of data from BFDR and CVR, which could not function here. And I think that reflects on the competence of AAIB and what kind of machine they bought. We have to eventually send it to US, which again is marks. There are certain doubts about the authenticity of the findings. So I think AIB needs to be also scrutinized for its role in doing the investigation.